From Rixie, this is Debuff, and I'm your host, Steve Skeels. Today I'll be talking about the status of 2020 conferences and conventions. Due to the current pandemic, I think everyone was expecting the gaming news cycle to be a little bit different this year. E3 was canceled in mid-March, and that was followed by a discussion about how announcements would be handled throughout the year. For the most part, I think it was anticipated that some digital events would probably take the place of what we normally get. And in the last week, we've gotten some news about what we should expect. First, I'll start with the biggest headline. Industry's Jeff Keighley has announced Summer Game Fest 2020, what is being touted as a season of digital video game events from publishers, select playable content, in-game events, and more. This is going to span 4 months, starting in May and concluding with Gamescom 2020 on August 24th. Many big hitters have already signed up to participate, with more to be announced in the coming weeks. Something really cool about this, though, is that they are promising access to limited-time demos of games throughout the year. Nothing confirmed yet, but I'm being optimistic as this sounds like we might be getting access to trials that would normally be reserved for show floors. Typically, big games don't have demos released to the public, because people don't need more convincing than some trailers and gameplay footage when it comes to these AAA titles. But in the digital age, I think releasing the show floor demos online would be a bit more convenient than what we would do waiting in line at E3 anyways. Plus, if the content is well paced, this could give a lot more time to focus on different games, whereas it's normally a rush for outlets to get as much as they can within a few days. The only downside I can see is that an event like this may impact some games, mainly by smaller developers. They typically rely on the big events like E3 for attention. The hype cycle around those games brings in viewers that may not have paid attention to a smaller game otherwise. But overall, I think this could work well, and I have hope that Jeff Keighley will put together a good event. If you haven't seen the Video Game Awards he hosts, it's been a pretty good show. The main fault of it is that half of it is an advertisement. Game announcements are cool, but when there's a lot of them at an award show, it feels like commercials. I think an event like this will be a better place to use his connections and pull in some big announcements. He clearly knows what he's doing when it comes to that, so I think this will turn out to be a good event. Another event that could be pretty big is IGN's Summer of Games. Starting in June, it's another digital event that promises to cover upcoming games and the next-gen consoles. They've stated programming is to include presentations, dev interviews, and gameplay. There's also the standard IGN fare like pre- and post-shows, personal impressions, and news recaps mentioned here as well. They've already got quite a few companies partnered with more to come, including some that will also be represented at Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest. IGN also mentioned partnering with Amazon, Google Stadia, and Twitter. Now, I do imagine that Twitter is just for the coverage, but this could mean that we will finally get some information on what Amazon is working on, and hopefully some Google Stadia announcements that will make it more appealing. Probably their biggest get so far is Cyberpunk 2077. It's too early to tell if this will be really anything exclusive, but they've announced it will be shown off at the event. While I don't know that IGN's Summer of Gaming event will be on the same scale as Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest, I think it's still going to be worth paying attention to. IGN is one of the larger gaming outlets, so I can imagine that they have quite a few connections. I'll bet there will be some good announcements, or first look gameplay footage at the very least. Personally, I think it's good to see them taking the reins themselves and being the ones to present the news instead of cover it. Between these two events, I think the E3 hole will be filled this summer. Next up, we'll get into some of the smaller announcements, starting with GDC. The Game Developers Conference, Summer 2020, has been moved to an all-digital show to run from August 4th to 6th. GDC is much different from E3, so for those that aren't familiar, it's a big opportunity for developers to network and learn from or teach each other. I think probably the most exposure most people have to GDC is the panels that are recorded and available to view online. So what's interesting here is that they have stated that the conference will be available to everyone with an internet connection, and they're working hard to deliver the same kind of experience that the attendees have come to expect. This could be a cool opportunity for a wider audience to get exposed to some game development. I'm actually looking forward to this, as long as we get to see more than what's in the typical year. I've never been to GDC, so I think this could be really cool. For those that love fighting games, EVO is probably the biggest event of the year. Unfortunately, this year it's been canceled and all tickets refunded. The organizers have said that there will be a digital event to be announced later on. Right now, we don't know quite what a digital event means in terms of how it will actually be held. It's unknown whether or not this just means the public won't be able to come for it, or if the participants will actually be playing remotely. Hopefully they figure something out to get participants in a situation where they are able to play over a LAN connection without putting anyone at risk. In fighting games, every frame counts. I can only imagine what a nightmare latency will be if they have to play online. I'm sure there would be a lot more controllers thrown, but we won't be seeing it this year. We'll have to wait and see how this one ends up coming together, but I hope they get something good for all the fans of fighting games. For the last topic, I'm just going to run through some of what the console manufacturers and Steam have said they're doing. Smaller topics here, so I just wanted to get them all together. Microsoft has announced that they will be hosting an Inside Xbox stream on May 7th, which will show off their first gameplay on the Xbox Series X. I'm not sure if this is happening earlier due to E3's cancellation, but it seems like they're still pushing forward and getting ready to release the Xbox Series X at the end of the year. Unfortunately, there's still no news from Sony. They're either going to show it off at one of these summer events, or my guess would be they're going to wait till a little bit closer to the end of the year when they know exactly what they're competing against. Nintendo is apparently not planning to have their typical June Direct. It's a rumor at this point, but with VentureBeat and Eurogamer independently corroborating it, it seems to be true. Eurogamer's report says that Nintendo has told publishers it is due to needing more time on their own first-party games, and for anyone developing a game they were going to announce at a Direct, to move on with their own announcements if they don't want to wait for Nintendo. At this point, I don't know if this will change. I don't expect it to, and while they might show off some games elsewhere, that isn't really Nintendo's style. Aside from the March Mini Direct and the Directs about a single game, the last true Nintendo Direct was in September, so I really hope they have something to show off in the next couple of months. But lastly, Steam is doing their Digital Summer Game Festival from June 9th to 14th. This promises info on upcoming games with time-limited or short demos. That's about all I've seen for PC gaming, but it sounds like it'll be a pretty good event. Well, that's all the information we've got right now. There might be a couple things we've left out, but hopefully there will be some more news in the coming weeks so we know exactly what we're looking forward to. Even without E3, I think this year we'll still be getting some good announcements. Hopefully not too many delays, and I'm expecting some surprises. Debuff is hosted by me, Steve Skeels, edited and mixed by Mason Carlton. Follow us on Instagram at DebuffPod. That's DebuffPod. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next one. And may the 4th be with you.